Y'all, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. As of May 12th, 2026, PCOS has a new name. Published in The Lancet, backed by the Endocrine Society and more than 50 international organizations, it has been renamed to Polyendocrine Metabolic Ovarian Syndrome, PMOS. And I need to tell you why this is especially significant if you are a South Asian woman. It's because the old name was not just misleading, it was actively failing you. And today, that changes. This name change took 14 years of global collaboration. Experts, patients, and researchers across multiple countries, thousands and thousands of people participated in surveys. This was not done lightly. So what was wrong with the old name? Let's talk about it. The word polycystic pointed to ovarian cysts, but here's what the research now confirms. Not all women actually even have extra ovarian cysts in this condition. Women were being reduced to a cyst story when the real story was so much more complex. Because PMOS is not just an ovarian condition, it is a hormonal disorder. It is a metabolic disorder. It affects weight, cardiovascular risk, mental health, skin, the reproductive system. That's why the new name leads with polyendocrine and metabolic, because that is what this condition actually is. Professor Helena Teed, the endocrinologist who led this 14-year process, said it was heartbreaking to see delayed diagnoses and inadequate care. And as an endocrinologist, I completely agree. That word, heartbreaking, lands differently when you have been in clinic with patients who waited years to have their symptoms taken seriously. So there is a 3-year transition period. The new name will fully be implemented in 2028, so you might start hearing both terms, but now you know what they mean and why this happened and why it might be confusing for a little while. And here is what I need you to understand. PMOS does not affect all women equally. And South Asian women, not surprisingly, get the short end of the stick here. A large 2026 systematic review found that PMOS prevalence by Rotterdam criteria, that means elevated androgens, ovarian cysts, and or irregular periods, you need 2 out of 3 of those criteria to be diagnosed. The prevalence of those criteria is highest in the Eastern Mediterranean and Southeast Asian regions, significantly higher than in the Western world. A landmark Indian study of nearly 10,000 women found a PMOS prevalence of close to 20% by Rotterdam criteria. That's 1 in 5 Indian women. But it's not just prevalence, it's severity. The metabolic risk is higher. South Asian women with PMOS have higher androgen levels, more insulin resistance, and greater rates of metabolic syndrome, even after adjusting for age and body weight. In South Asian women, the odds of having metabolic syndrome with PMOS are dramatically elevated compared to white women with PMOS with the same BMI. That last part is critical. BMI is already a blunt and unreliable tool for South Asian women. We carry more central adiposity, which is fat around the organs, even at lower body weights. The MASALA study, I love that name, is the only longitudinal study of South Asian Americans in the United States. It confirmed that South Asians have higher liver fat, more intramuscular fat, and lower lean muscle mass compared to other ethnic groups, even at similar weights. What this means is that a South Asian woman with PMOS who looks a normal weight by standard BMI may already have significant metabolic disease that has not been found because no one was looking, because the tools being used were not built for her body. The cardiovascular risk is not theoretical. It is so well established that the 2018 AHA and ACC guidelines added South Asian ancestry as a formal risk-enhancing factor for cholesterol management. That means if you are South Asian, you should be treated as higher cardiovascular risk even if your numbers look borderline, not because of anything you did, but because the standard risk calculators were not built on your data. Now add PMOS to that picture, because PMOS independently raises cardiovascular risk through insulin resistance, lipid changes, and chronic low-grade inflammation. South Asian women with PMOS are carrying layered risks that most clinicians are simply not being trained to quantify. Now let's talk about perimenopause, and here's a layer that almost no one is talking about. South Asian women tend to enter perimenopause earlier, sometimes by up to 5 years compared to the general average. So, if you are a South Asian woman in your early to mid 40s experiencing brain fog, irregular periods, weight changes, or fatigue, you are not too young. You may be in perimenopause. And if you have PMOS on top of that, the metabolic changes of estrogen decline are going to compound an already elevated metabolic risk profile. This is exactly why I have been so vocal about South Asian women's health. Not because it is a niche topic, because it is a neglected one with real clinical consequences. One of the most common things I hear from South Asian women is, I went to my doctor, my labs were normal, and I was sent home. But normal by whose standards? Built on whose data? Standard BMI cutoffs, normal, but central adiposity and visceral fat, not even captured. Standard fasting glucose, normal, but fasting glucose alone can miss early insulin resistance. A glucose tolerance test or fasting insulin level would tell a more complete story, so would a family history. Standard lipid panel, normal, but advanced markers like ApoB, Lp(a) may not have been ordered, and those are the markers that better predict cardiovascular risk in South Asian women. Look, this is not about blaming any individual clinician. It is about a system that was built on data from populations that did not include us, using cutoffs that were not validated in us. PMOS in South Asian women is a perfect example of this. High prevalence, more severe phenotype, earlier and more significant metabolic consequences, and still routinely underdiagnosed or dismissed. I want to give you something concrete to take out of this video. If you are a South Asian woman and you have PMOS, or if you have symptoms that sound like what I have described, here's what to ask your doctor. 1. Can you screen me for insulin resistance? Ask for a fasting insulin level alongside your fasting glucose or a glucose tolerance test. Glucose tolerance tests are not fun to do, but they can be very revealing in some women. Standard fasting glucose alone can miss early insulin resistance, especially in South Asian women where metabolic dysfunction can occur at lower BMIs. Ask your doctor, should we look at my ApoB and Lp(a)? These are markers of cardiovascular risk that go beyond a standard cholesterol panel. Given South Asian ancestry is an AHA/ACC risk-enhancing factor, advanced lipid testing is clinically appropriate. Ask, is it possible I am in perimenopause? If you are in your early to mid-40s with irregular cycles, brain fog, sleep changes, or unexplained weight gain, don't let anyone tell you you are too young. Ask the question directly. Sadly, most clinicians are not well versed in menopause and perimenopause care. If they don't know what you're talking about, it's time to seek a clinician who does. Next, ask them, are you using South Asian specific BMI thresholds? I don't love BMI. Body composition scan is better, but many clinicians don't even know that clinical guidelines recommend lower BMI cutoffs for South Asian patients, around 23 for overweight rather than 25. If your doctor is not aware of these, is not using these, it is a reasonable and important question. Next, ask, do you have experience treating PMOS in South Asian women? This is your right to ask. And if the answer is no, it may be worth seeing a specialist who is, like an endocrinologist or a clinician familiar with ethnic-specific metabolic risk. You are not being dramatic, you are not being difficult, you are advocating for care that was always supposed to be yours. The renaming of PCOS to PMOS is not just a label change. It is a declaration about what this condition actually is. It is a complex endocrine and metabolic disorder that has been underestimated, underdiagnosed, and undertreated for decades. For South Asian women especially, this moment matters. Because PMOS does not just affect us at the same rate, it affects us earlier, more severely, and with cardiovascular and metabolic consequences that the standard tools were not built to catch. Lorna Berry, an Australian woman with PMOS who helped lead the renaming process, said, "This is about accountability and progress. It is about her daughters, their daughters, and the countless women yet to be born." That sentence hit me as a mom with a daughter because that is exactly what this is about. This is about doing better for future generations. If this video resonated with you, please share it with a South Asian woman in your life who deserves this information. Comment Desi below, and I will send you the full Endocrine Matters episode. That's our podcast where we go even deeper into South Asian women's hormonal and metabolic health. I am Dr. Arti Thangudu, board-certified endocrinologist, and this is my YouTube channel. Subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you found this helpful, please give it a like, a comment. It helps women find this information who need it.